The night was stormy. The power had just gone out, and most kids her age would have been too scared to leave the safety of their bed. But somehow, in the early hours of Valentine's Day 2000, 9-year-old Asha Degree stepped out into darkness and was never seen again. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Corner of Curiosity. Today we're going to be looking into and diving into the unsolved disappearance of Asha Degree. She was a 9-year-old from Shelby, North Carolina who vanished in the middle of the night. So if you are new to the channel or new to the podcast, I cover everything from true crime, conspiracies, cults, other horror things that are found on the internet. And today we're going to be covering a case that I did not really know a lot of information about when I first went into it, but I've heard people around me speak about it for a while. And one of my main pillars of this channel would be to highlight marginalized voices or stories that aren't really told in the media as much. And being that this case is over 20 years old, I really think it needs a resurgence into the media. So that's why I'm making this video. And I know there were some updates recently, as in 2025, that I wanted to go over as well. But with that being said, let's just get into the video. Asha was just a regular kid. She loved math, basketball, and spending time with her family. But one morning, she quietly got out of bed and never came home. Over the past 25 years, tips, sightings, and mysterious discoveries have kept her story in the public eye, but the truth about what happened that night remains a haunting mystery. In this video, we'll break down her disappearance, the massive search efforts, the strange leads, and the latest 2025 developments that have ignited hope for answers. So before we even talk about Asha's disappearance, let's talk about who she was as a person, because even though she was a 9-year-old, she was really living her best life. So Asha was born on I have a friend named Asha, so I keep wanting to say that, but Asha was born on August 5th, 1990. She was from Shelby, North Carolina. She was only 9 years old when she disappeared. People remembered her as happy, well-behaved, athletic, and very shy. She loved math, science, and basketball, and was very close to her older brother, O'Brien. Her parents, Harold and Asha Degree, raised her children on Oakcrest Drive in a quiet suburban neighborhood. They both worked regular jobs nearby. Harold worked as a dock loader at a Pittsburgh plate glass, and Asha built pianos at Kauai American Manufacturing. After school, the kids would let themselves in, and they were expected to have their homework done by the time their parents got home. The Degrees tried to keep their kids' lives centered around family, church, and school, which I feel like is very normal for people who are in the Bible Belt, who are in southern communities. It's really just about going to school, going to church, and just having a pretty sheltered life. So Asha was in 4th grade nearby Falston Elementary School, going into a 3-day weekend into the second week of February 2000. Friday, February 11th, schools were closed, but the Degrees still had to work. So Asha and her brother spent the day at their aunt's house nearby, before heading to youth basketball practice. The next day, Asha's team, where she played star point guard, lost their first game of the season. She fouled out. Her parents said she was very upset, crying along with her teammates, but later that day, she seemed to bounce back, even watching her brother's game. So with her having a weird day in basketball and kind of bouncing back by the end of the day, we're not going to get into what happened on that day she went missing and all the events following up to it, to just see where her mind was, because it is really weird to think how a 9-year-old just got up and vanished. On February 13th, which was a Sunday, Asha and O'Brien went to church from a relative's house and then returned home. Around 8 p.m. that night, both children went to bed in their room that they shared. About an hour later, the power went out in the neighborhood after a nearby car accident. The power came back on at 12:30 a.m., at which Harold, which was their father, saw both Asha and O'Brien asleep in their beds. He checked again shortly after before he went to bed at 2:30 a.m. He checked again shortly before he went to bed at 2:30 a.m. and again saw them both. Shortly after, O'Brien recalls hearing Asha's bed squeak. He did not think anything of it because he thought that she was just changing positions in her sleep. Apparently, around this time, Asha got out of bed, took a book bag she had previously packed with several sets of clothing and personal items, and left the house. Between 3:45 and 4:15 a.m., a truck driver with a motorist saw her walking through the Highway 18, wearing a long-sleeved white t-shirt and white pants, just north of the junction of Highway. They reported this to the police after seeing a TV report about her disappearance. He circled 3 times and saw Asha run into the woods by the roadside and disappear. It was a rainy night, and the witnesses said that there was a storm raging. County Sheriff Dan Crawford said, "We're pretty sure it was her because the descriptions they gave are consistent with what we know what she was wearing." He added that they saw her at the same place, heading the same direction. Iquilla woke at 5:45 to get the children ready for school that morning. This involved drawing a bath for them because she had not been able to take one the night before because the power was out. When she opened the children's room to wake them up before their 6:30 alarm and call them to bathe, O'Brien was in his bed. Asha was not. And Iquilla was unable to find her in the house or in the family cars. She told Harold that she could not find their daughter. He suggested Asha might have gone over to his mother's house across the street. When Iquilla called there, her sister-in-law said that Asha was not there. That's when I went into panic mode. I heard a car next door. I put my shoes on and ran outside. Iquilla called her mother, who told her to call the police. And I'll insert some clips of Iquilla and Harold talking about this moment when they realized that their daughter was gone, because I can't imagine what emotions and what feelings were running through them when you realize that your 9-year-old daughter is not in their bed anymore.
For now 25 years, where is Asha?
You look at her classmates that's grown up and that were still part of their life, and then that's when you realize what you miss. The weddings, they're having children now, and you realize all of that, and that's when you realize, that's when I realized what I missed out on. But I thank God for the 9 years that we did get to have her. She's the first thing I think of when I get up in the morning, and the last thing I think of when I go to bed. We never forget.
And just the pure effort that these two parents have put in to find any information about their daughter is just, honestly, you can just see how much they loved their daughter and how much they cared about her and how much they really want to find answers about what happened to her. And I will insert those clips. Now let's get into the search, because I feel like in this instance, this was a case where people really, really cared about this girl and they wanted to find all answers known to man to find her. Because you know, in other cases, especially in people who are minorities, that the police don't really care, or they don't really put as much effort into as it was, as if it was a white person or a Caucasian person. They don't really put in that much effort. So it is kind of, I don't think interesting is the right word, but it is very refreshing to see a whole community, not even just law enforcement, come around this family and really try to get people out there searching for their daughter as soon as they could. By around 6:40 that morning, police were already on the scene. They even brought in search dogs, but the dogs couldn't pick up Asha's scent anywhere. Iquilla was out walking through the neighborhood calling her daughter's name. She later said she probably woke up everyone by 7 a.m. Neighbors, friends, and family dropped everything to help that search. Even their pastors and other local clergy came to the Degrees' house to be with them. And I think that just shows the power of community in situations like this and in other cases. Like, the people that come first off, I just think that the community around this case is so caring and they want answers so bad. Even today, even with the updates I have in 2025, you can just see how much people want to know what happened to Asha and they want to bring her home. Even if she isn't alive anymore or whatever the case may be, they just want their daughter home and they want her back to her family. But by the end of the day, all anyone found was a single mitten. And Iquilla swore it wasn't Asha's. None of her winter clothes were missing from the house. News reports about the case got 2 drivers to come forward. They both said they'd seen Asha walking along the highway early that morning. One of them even tried to approach her, but when he did, she ran off into the woods. The very next day, February 15th, police found what looked like clues inside a shed near the highway, close to where she'd spotted. Inside were candy wrappers, a pencil, a green marker, and a yellow hair bow, all confirmed by her parents as belonging to Asha. But they also found something stranger, a small photo of a young girl that nobody in the family recognized. The following day, February 16th, Iquilla realized that some of Asha's favorite clothes were missing from her room, including a pair of blue jeans with a red stripe. Despite a massive effort, only 9,000 hours spent searching a 2 to 3 mile radius, hundreds of flyers posted, and more than 300 leads, nothing solid turned up. After a week, the official search was called off. As Sheriff Dan Crawford said at the time, "We have never really had that first good, substantial lead." He pleaded with the media to keep Asha's story alive. And if I can find some clips of this sheriff talking about the initial search, I will insert it, because I think it's really important to just see how much this community cared about Asha and about her family and about finding her and spending so much time, over 9,000 hours, in a 2 to 3 mile radius just to look for her. Now we can get into even further development. Like, yes, you got to think on a community level, that's really, really good, but they wanted to go bigger. So On February 22, 2000, Sheriff Dan Crawford told reporters that the search for Asha was going, quote-unquote, long range. The FBI and the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigations officially joined the case, placing Asha in their missing children's database. While the ground search near her home was winding down, Crawford assured the public that they were following everything. Based on what Inquriesl noticed missing from Asha's room, investigators believe she had planned her departure days in advance. And I really want to... It's hard to think what a 9-year-old would be thinking about running away, like preemptively packing a bag, picking out her favorite clothes to put in the bag, and like having that forethought of like, I'm not going to be here for a while, so let me pack my bag and leave. But it's like, where was she trying to go? A 9-year-old. I don't really understand like where. So, but with that being said, FBI agent Bart Burpue pointed out she's not your typical runaway. Ben Emmy from the National Center for Missing and Employed Children noted that most runaways are at least 12 years old. An FBI agent also emphasized that Asha didn't have the usual warning signs. No troubled home life, no issues at school. Still, the working theory remained. Asha had likely run away, but something went wrong. The case quickly gained national attention. Just a month after disappearance, the Degree family appeared on the Montel Williams Show. Segments ran on America's Most Wanted and the Oprah Winfrey Show. In March 2000, a full color-sized billboard went up along Highway 18, the last place Asha had been seen. It showed her photo, name, and identifying information. The following year, in May 2001, stock car driver Travis Kittleson placed Asha's picture on the hood of his car during a televised race in Concord, North Carolina. He explained, "We've got a perfect opportunity to put Asha's picture on the car, and maybe, with any luck, we can help bring her home." Then, in August 2001, there was a chilling discovery. During a construction project off Highway 18 in Burke County, about 26 miles north of Shelby, workers uncovered Asha's book bag. It was wrapped in 2 plastic trash bags. Inside were personal items, including her name and phone number. The FBI immediately sent it to Quantico for forensic testing. Nearly 2 decades later, in 2020, the FBI confirmed what had been inside the bag: a copy of McElliot's Pool by Dr. Seuss, which was checked out from Asha's elementary school library, and a t-shirt featuring the band New Kids on the Block. Neither item appeared to belong before they ended up in the bag. Over the years, countless tips came in, but most led nowhere. In 2004, deputies dug at a site in Lauderdale after a tip from an inmate. What they found were animal bones, not human remains. After this, obviously, years have gone by and nobody has really heard any information about the case, but in February 2015, the FBI actually reopened Asha's case. They teamed up with the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office and the SBI and started re-interviewing old witnesses. They also put up a reward for $25,000 for information leading to an arrest. And then a community group added another $20,000 on top of that. So $45,000 just to figure out what happened to Asha and to just get somebody to say something. Because you got to think, somebody, even if it was in the middle of the night, somebody would have heard something from her going in the woods or could have heard something. About a year later, in May 2016, investigators dropped a new possible lead. A witness came forward saying they saw Asha get into a car the night she disappeared, and it was described as a dark green 1970s Lincoln Continental Mark, or maybe a Ford Thunderbird with rust around the wheel wells. In 2017, the FBI's Child Abduction Rapid Deployment Team, which is basically like their elite task force for cases such as this, came down to Cleveland County. They worked alongside local investigators for 10 days straight, digging into the case from every angle. Since then, they've run about 300 interviews and kept meeting regularly to review the evidence. In 2018, investigators went public with 2 of the strangest clues from Asha's backpack: the Dr. Seuss book and the New Kids on the Block t-shirt. Detectives called them vital clues, but no one could explain how those items ended up with her, because you gotta remember, these belongings did not belong to Asha. So first of all, how did they get in her backpack? And second of all, who put her backpack in those trash bags and just threw them out like they were nothing? Because they were definitely hiding evidence, because if you're just getting rid of a backpack, you could just easily dump it in a dumpster. You don't have to put it in 2 trash bags on top of that. So it feels like somebody knew that was her backpack and they were trying to get rid of evidence, in my opinion. Then there came a false lead. In late 2020, a convicted sex offender named Marcus Mellon sent a letter to Shelby Star claiming Asha had been murdered and he knew where her body was. Investigators followed up, but it was just another dead end. Fast forward to December 2024, and this is a really major update. The FBI and the Sheriff's Office excluded executed a new search warrant based on physical evidence. They didn't find human remains, but they did seize several items, including a green 1964 AMC Rambler. According to the warrant, investigators now believed Asha was the victim of homicide and that her body had been hidden. Okay, this is a sidetrack because I just looked this up, but it looks like this article was released on February 18th, 2015, and it shows that the warrant showed that law enforcement took the cell phone of Lizzie Foster, the daughter of a Cleveland County man whose property was searched by federal agents last September, which I'm assuming this is the September 24, yeah. Foster was 16 at the time of Degree's appearance, according to the warrants. In September, a search warrant revealed that the investigators believed Degree was a victim of homicide and that her body was concealed. The FBI, along with state and local investigators, searched a Cleveland County property for several days, searching for evidence at a property on Cherryville Road in Shelby. That's where the investigators recovered a car similar in make and model to the one sought during the initial search for Degree in 2000. Happened in February 2025. It looks like the investigators had revealed some very suspicious texts from those phones that they took. And then in April, they searched a property that once belonged to someone described as a prominent figure in the investigation. So with that being said, we have some more 2025 updates because I think these updates came literally out like not even 6 months ago. So here are things now. In April 2025, investigators searched a Lincoln County's property tied to the case. On the surface, it looked like an old, boarded-up building near a fire department, but records showed it had once been owned by Roy Lee and Connie Dedman, the parents of Lizzie Foster, which we mentioned in the article I just read. Lizzie is the same woman whose cell phone had been seized earlier this year as part of the investigation. The Dedmans had sold the property back in 2004 and had since changed hands multiple times. Investigators were allowed to search it with the current owner's permission. No new search warrant was filed, and the owner told reporters, "I don't know what they found. I tried to help. You need to ask the sheriff." The Dedman family's name first came up in connection with Asha's case in September 2024 after detectives interviewed new witnesses. One man who came forward said he'd been close to Sarah and Lizzie Dedman and recalled a party years ago when Lizzie had been crying uncontrollably, repeatedly saying that she had killed Asha Degree. That tip prompted investigators to dig deeper. Warrants were obtained by Lizzie Foster's phone as well as messages involving her sisters, Anna Lee Dedman and Sarah Capel. Court documents describe these as messages of interest linked to the case. Around the same time, investigators also seized a green car from another Dedman-owned property in Cleveland County, which was the 1964 AMC Rambler, and it matched the description of a suspicious green vehicle the FBI had been seeking for years. Sarah Capel later told detectives that her father had given it to her as her first car when she was 16. Fast forward today, the green AMC Rambler remains a key point of interest in the ongoing investigation. For the first time, the Dedman family is speaking out through a spokesperson, Skip Foster. "There's a courtroom, and then there's a courtroom of public opinion," he said, and there's only been one side of the story told. Foster emphasized that the Dedmans did not own the vehicle at the time Asha disappeared. Public records show the car wasn't titled or registered in their name until a full month after her disappearance in February 2000. The family says that the intense scrutiny over the years has brought fear and frustration. Foster said that the Dedmans want the same thing the Degree family does, answers. They want to find out what happened as much as anybody, he said, but they want, which I don't really, maybe this is just me, but I don't really think you really have, you're probably getting harassed and things because people think that it's you, but you also have to think about the Degree family and how much they have had to deal with talking to the media all the time, having to rehash what's happened to Asha year after year after year just to get her story out. So yes, you are struggling, but the Degree family is struggling too. So, and I know they've been very cooperative in the case, but it is kind of like, I don't know, that could put a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth of you just being like, yeah, we're having a hard time too. But it's like, this family lost their daughter. Her daughter has been gone longer than she has been alive. So if you just shut your mouth for a little bit and just do what the police tell you, then maybe you'd get out of it quicker. Maybe just a little note, just a little thought right there. Police continue to comb through evidence. Asha's family and the community remain hopeful for the breakthrough that could finally bring closure. Anyone with information about Asha's disappearance is urged to contact the FBI or Cleveland County Sheriff's Office. And with that is the end of Asha's Degree story. But Asha's Degree story is one that has haunted her family, her community, and anyone who follows it for over 25 years. From a quiet February night in 2000 to the latest searches and new leads in 2025, the case has remained full of unanswered questions, mysterious clues, and heartbreaking what-ifs. So, with that being said, I want to thank you guys so much for watching this episode of The Corner of Curiosity. If you're listening on podcast or if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe, follow the podcast, whatever you want to do. And please let me know any other cases you want to see me cover in the comments below. I'm really trying to focus on marginalized voices and cases that really need to be resurged, I guess, promoted in the, I don't know what I'm trying to say, that need to be shared again in the online space. I don't know if that made sense, but that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know how you like the script. I'm really trying to tweak that as I make these videos. But yes, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.